You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids. Welcome to season number 3 and episode number 42 of the Not Quite Daily Beaver Morning Show, for those moments when you want to get your winter's day started off right with a nice big bowl of piping hot beaver grizzly goodness. Yum, 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 yum. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and I am utterly delighted that you, my dear kits, are joining us for another chinwag this morning. Today, recording day is Friday, January 20th, 2023, pre-pubcast day, my favorite day of the month. Well, my second, I don't know if it's the pre-day that I'm excited about it that makes it my favorite day, or the day that we actually do it that makes it the favorite day, but let's just say my favorite period of the month. That's
like Christmas Eve, right?
Like Christmas Eve. Right. It's like I'm just too excited to sleep.
It's Pubcast Eve.
And it's going to be a lovely winter's day here at the Beaver Lodge with a few scattered flurries. Of course, a big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Good morning, Kit Bruce. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. I'm not sure if you're still in the Philippines, but if you are, hello and good morning. Mabuhay. Good morning, you wonderful people from Lazy Sunday with Wade and Doe. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Kit Jillian. Good morning, Kit Linda M. It's so lovely to see you. And it's so lovely to have the rest of you who are joining us either live or on other channels, or will be listening to us after the fact. In the headlines today, there's been a lot of news. We have
Really?
a little. Oh, gee, yeah. There's tons of news. So we'll talk a little bit about Alberta. We'll talk about some police stuff. And whatever else, maybe some economic data, and whatever else crosses the conversation today as things come up. But before we can go and single inch further, we must tend to some very, very, very important business, and that is saying hello to our podcast's fine fellow and taking a little bit of a media break. Hello, Mr. Grizzly. How's your mental health today? It seems that you've done some stuff to choose you.
Hey, Mr. Beaver. Yeah. As anybody witness to Wednesday morning's show would discover, and Monday's solo shot, I'm not in a good place. So I decided I was going to take both a media and social media break. So I have no clue as to what's going on in the world. All I've been doing is working hard at my day job, which I carried over into the evening because I'm doing some video editing for a project at work, and watching Netflix. So I haven't got a clue as to what's going on, other than the 2 headlines I read this morning, and the goings on this weekend in the city of Ottawa. So I really don't know what the hell's going on in the world, honest to goodness. And
all right,
for once in my life, I'm pretty okay with that. You
know,
got to unplug the brain every now and then and recharge it when you know things are going sideways and south and you're enveloped by the darkness. It's like, let's just cast off anything that would add to the darkness and take care of myself. So that's kind of what I've been doing. So I'd like today will be an eye opener, but after we get off, after we're done today, I'm not no more social media for the day. I'll be on James' show tonight.
Hmm.
I'll pop in there for a bit, but honestly, I'm avoiding all social media today, all news media today, focusing on work and myself. It's necessary right now because I don't want to be in the darkness, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I understand you. I'm always a big fan of temporarily running away from your issues or bad stimulus. I mean, so long as you know you're going to have to come back to them and deal with them, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
But yeah, temporarily running away from your problems is highly underrated.
Well, it's one of those things. It's just when you know your headspace isn't good and can't deal with it, it's like let's compartmentalize it. We'll push this off to the side while I can fix this stuff in front of me.
Hmm.
And I don't have that distraction over here because I've pushed it out. So I
Right.
can focus on what's important and what's good, straighten that out, and then I can take the walls down and go, oh, yeah, come on in. I'll deal with you now.
Yep.
It's just a way of it's how it works for me. I don't know if it works for anybody else. I can't recommend it for anybody else, but it's what works for me. I mean, hey, um, 54 years and counting, and 40 plus years, 43 years, I guess, of depression and anxiety, and I'm still very much here. So if it works, it works. Of
Yep.
course, medication and therapy help too, right?
Right. Right. But strategies. Ma- Making a choice to have a preservation of mental health day or days
Mm-hmm.
is never a bad choice.
No,
So,
no, no, no. That's
congratulations you on choosing
thanks.
you.
Thank you. And
There you go.
it's I, because I'm private sector, I only get 3 sick days a year. So in the past, whenever I was sick, 99 out of 100 times, it was a mental health day. It was not,
Mhm.
unless I'd hurt my back, and I've done that in my,
Yeah.
work in construction. But most of the time, if I was sick, it was a mental health day, and I was not comfortable with saying that. Now, if I have to take the day off, I will just say, look, my brain is not in the right place. I can lie to you and tell you I have a cold or this and that, but that's a lie, and I don't want to do that. The truth is, I'm severely depressed and horribly anxious, and I can't deal with anything right now. So I'm not going. And I had a couple of days this week at work where I was really struggling, but I was able to again compartmentalize, push that stuff aside, focus on the task at hand, and get through it. And being in a super positive environment with people who pump you up
Hmm.
and are complimentary really does make a difference. I mean, surrounding yourself with positive messages and positive people in a positive environment when you're in the darkness makes a huge difference. So, yeah, that's where I am. And how about yourself? How are you doing? Because we
I
haven't
am.
talked in a couple days. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I am doing quite well. My time in Quebec City with friends was good. We didn't get to do all the things that we wanted to because
hmm,
there was a big snowstorm on the day, that day before and the day I was traveling.
right.
Uh, but it was still nice to connect. It was a more, I mean, it was going to be a pretty chill weekend to begin with, but it was even chiller,
Mm-hmm.
if you would.
Chiller. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I caught up on some sleep, which was really nice. But yeah, just hung out with people I love and people who love me, and I haven't seen in a while.
I get that.
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
that.
it was really good, and then the rest of the week has been okay. Some good curling this week. They redid the ice over the holidays, and fortunately, they didn't screw it up like they did the last time they redid the ice.
Well, that's good. That's a good
So
thing.
I'm not going through a 6 week period where every rock I'm throwing is making me go, "What the hell?"
Oh, speaking of rocks, I
Yes.
was reading a thing. I think it was last week. There was a single island off the coast of Scotland where 95% of the world's curling stones got their granite from,
Okay.
but not anymore. It's
Oh.
now a protected environment. And most curling stones these days are made with a certain amount of granite from recycled stones and some polymers as well. So they're
Oh.
using yes. So it's a wildlife and nature preserve. This island. I was like, wow, I had no idea. Yeah, some 90 or 95% of the world's curling stones, all the granite was from this one island off the coast of Scotland. Which, hey, it's something I never thought about before, but kind of
Neither have
makes
I.
sense. I mean, that's where the Scotland and curling are. like Scotland and golf. That's where the two of those sports were invented, which is curious. It's like Scotland, northern Scotland, which is quite far north. They would have ponds where they would, cast the curling stone on, but it's kind of like, wow, you don't think of snow and ice and cold when you think of Scotland, and yet, like John
Hmm.
O'Groats is the most northern part of Scotland, and that is really far north.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I just stumbled upon a little article here about the family that makes them. Kays of Scotland, a family-owned curling stone business that traces its origins back to 1851, has exclusive access to the island's quarries and makes the Olympic stones. But it doesn't say what the island's name is. Interesting.
Mm.
Hmm.
Cool,
Hmm.
cool facts, eh? That you just sort of randomly stumble across.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all. I'm going to have to read that story. So yeah, the rocks are going, well, I've been playing like a frickin' rock star.
Nice.
Like the last few weeks, I've been making stuff left, right, and center. But yeah, so it's just nice to be back playing because when you're throwing your stones, and I'm sure it's like this in any sport. If you're playing tennis or you're skiing or whatnot, and there's something going wrong, like things are not going like you think they would go when you're doing it, and you've done everything that you know how to do, and you still don't know how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird. It's like, for me, it's like, why do I keep on falling flat on my face every time I get off a chairlift when I ski? I just can't. I just can't fix it. I don't know why, but I can't fix it. I guess I never fall when I ski, but I can't get off a chairlift without falling flat on my face or falling on my back. I do
See
not
that
know
that just I don't comprehend that. I don't. I'm like, all you do
I'm not a
is
dancer. I've got great balance, but I
well, this
can't.
is the thing. It's like, how do you get off a chairlift? Well, you put your skis down, and as you come to the edge, you just stand up, and it pushes you forward. How do you? But hey, everybody's got a different set of coordination.
But the chair does something like this when it lets you off. It sort of like speeds up. It's sort of like it doesn't just let you off. It sort of like gives you a push as you go. And
That's the general idea. Yeah,
I
get out
know
of get out of the way. There's people coming.
I can't time it. I just can't time it.
Okay.
So
Well.
yeah, so for about 5 weeks, I was throwing a rock and was like, okay, that went like 3 feet shorter than it should have been. That curled like a foot more than it should have. That went right when it should have gone left. Like, I do not know how to fix this. Why is this still happening? So yeah, it's and I have to say I was getting a little disheartened by around week 5. It wasn't fun going to the club to
Good to
basically
know.
to play. Let's see what happens today. So yeah, so I had a good week, and my sweetie had a good week. He's teaching his first of his 2 intensive weeks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
and he was worried going in because he was trying to. His goal was to get pre-prepared as
Mm-hmm.
much as possible. But
So a
then,
little
like,
anxious. Little anxious.
well, yes, because he was trying to juggle that with work at another site at the
Right.
college, and for a 2 week period, that was not possible because the courses were at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But they finally got that resolved, and then contracts, because as we know, pretty much everywhere, you got to be thankful for those who show up still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So contracts were late, were coming in. So you're told you have a job, but you don't have anything official that says you have a job. And it's like, should I be
Right.
preparing for this job I don't know I have, and I don't know I'm going to get paid for? Um, but everything worked out in the end. But he had as we mentioned, had a rough few weeks a couple of weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, where he just seemed to be not being able to go left or go right because he didn't have all the information he needed.
Yeah.
He's
That's yeah.
or sometimes for some one of the courses, he didn't even know if there was going to be a book or not assigned yet.
See, that's
Right.
difficult because you're sort of treading water, trying to keep your head above it, but you don't like you don't see any land in sight or a boat or a life preserver. I mean, that's sort of how I can relate to that sort of experience. It's an anxiety-inducing experience when you don't know what the hell is going on, but you're supposed to be doing this thing over here. But yeah, that's a difficult situation.
Well, right, and it's how do you word it? It's not being able to go left or right because you don't know the subject matter. It's because the subject matter is so broad, and
Hmm.
the boundaries of the sound box that you're going to play in haven't been so firmly set for you yet that you don't want to just, okay, well, let's say, oh, I'm going to prepare this. Ooh, okay, that's completely out of bounds, and there goes 2 weeks work, right?
Yeah.
So so for everybody, like, things are coming in late and things are closer to deadline and things are even a little more just in time
Mm-hmm.
than people would like them to be. If your contract's going to be renewed, you'd like to know that like a month or so before it's going to be renewed, right? You don't like to know it the day before. It's like, oh yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
you
no.
still have a job tomorrow, right? You would like to know a little more than that, right? Because bills still need to get paid, and there's that anxiety that comes with that. But he's today's the last day of the first week, and he is thriving,
Oh, outstanding.
just
Well,
thriving.
tell him I
Uh,
give him a thumbs up. Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah,
Glad to
he's
hear it.
teaching some introduction to chemistry to people at the Royal Military College, the people who sort of sweep in and
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
an evaluation of a site to see what's happened chemically or what should be disposed of or what needs to be cleared. So, these are, it's an interesting group because it's a different set of students. They're there for 2 weeks full
Right.
time, but they're older students. They're in their 30s. They have the military discipline, so they're there for a specific task. They're there to focus on the task. They're not coming in every single day asking for a new accommodation.
Right. Right. It's just a
They're
little bit
not.
simpler.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
they're
not
they're they're
complaining that the dogs
military
ate their homework.
trained, right? So
Right.
their mindset is very different, and they're under a command. So they've gone through their basic training, so they're good at following orders. So I've met a number of people in my lifetime who have taught in military. School is not the right word, but the military theater is what I'll say. It was schooling, of course, but they said they're the easiest to teach because they're there focused on the task at hand, focused on let's get this course, let's get this understanding so I can get out into the field and do this. Um, Whereas with a lot of uni students, you know, they
Right.
might phone it in for a couple of years on mom and dad's dime or mom's dime or dad's dime or whatever the case may be, right? And they're just there to party and try and figure life out. And I am not passing judgment on that. Look, 54 years old, I'm still not quite sure what I want to be when I grow up.
Hmm.
I do know I want to continue to do this, though, because I love doing this.
Yes.
It's a great deal of work to do this, but it doesn't feel like work because it's a labor of love,
Right. Right.
right?
Yes. Right. Right. And speaking of university, I learned something late last month, but apparently Canada's grants, so the federal government grants for master's and PhD students because they get paid to go to school.
Yes, as well they should.
Yes. They haven't increased since 2003. They haven't had a raise in 19 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So annual stipends of $17,500 a year for master students and $21,000 a year for PhD students are definitely below the poverty line.
Yeah. Well, this
Definitely below. These are the people that we're depending on for the ideas for tomorrow.
they need to be paid a living wage at least. I remember reading an article, must be 10 years ago now. And I was shocked when I read it. And I told my sister about it. And she's like, no, that can't be. And I pulled up the article and showed it to her. And she was like, what? I go, the amount of stuff that slips through the cracks that people don't notice is astonishing. And this story was a real simple one. You know how the government hires a lot of students in the summertime, and sometimes those students stick on for a longer time period, or
Yep, I've
they'll hire.
benefited from those programs.
Right. Or they'll just hire. We're hiring positions all over the country, and we need to staff these full-time positions, and they're not going to be like 3 6 months contract. We're talking about a 2 3 year contract, and they were advertising for this. So one of the job requirements was to have a master's degree in one of 6 or 7 fields of study. I went, yeah, okay, that seems reasonable. And the starting salary was minimum wage as a
Mm,
full-time employee for the federal government.
mm,
This was under the Harper regime, and I say
mhm.
regime because, well, and again, my sister like that can't be. I pulled up the article, showed it to her. It was in the Ottawa Citizen. You can go and search it out and find it. I remember reading that, and not only was I shocked, But at the same token, I wasn't shocked. It's like, well, of course, it's the reformers. They don't want to pay anybody anything. We know we got to get this job done, so just give them money that makes it legal. But your requirement is a master's degree in your field of study. I'm sorry,
You
but
shouldn't be getting
why?
paid a minimum wage if you've got a master's.
I mean, really? Like, really? So you've accumulated all this student debt, and now we're going to pay you as much as a 16-year-old kid. And I'm not knocking the 16-year-old. I'm not.
No.
And I'm not saying that minimum wage is designed for students. Minimum wage was designed to be the minimum amount one needs to earn to keep a roof over their head, food in their belly, a minimum livable wage. That's what it was designed for. It's not livable anymore. And to insist that you have a master's degree to work for the full-time position in the federal government, and then they're going to pay you the same thing as the kid handing me my fries.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not belittling anyone. I'm just trying to say the sheer audacity of a government to do that upon somebody is just astonishing to me. But then again, it was Stephen Harper and the Reform Party. I know it's conservative, but it's only conservative in name. Come on.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
a couple of things. I just
Oh, hold on.
because
I'm not
oh,
done with this thing yet.
okay. Well, I, I was going to say a couple of things. I got to get coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then
So go ahead. Go ahead. I'll be right back.
So yes, in countries like Australia, for example, PhD scholarships are indexed every year with the cost of living, but that has not been the case with Canada. So basically, every year since 2003, masters and PhD students have been getting a de facto salary cut because their stipends have not been keeping up with the cost of inflation. Oh, it's coffee time. It's coffee time. Oh, we're not going to hear the pour, though, however, because the cup is already full, I see in the image there. But yes, all three of Canada's federal research funding agencies, the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, or NSERC, if you've heard of that, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, CIHR, or the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, SSHRC, if you've heard of those, all three of them have not raised the amount in, well, I mean, 20 years now. Oh, right.
That's pretty bad.
Since 2003. Um, so people who receive these stipends are expected to work full time on their research, and in some cases are explicitly banned from spending more than 10 hours per week on any other paid employment as well, but are not been given enough to live on and haven't been given a raise for 20 years.
That's
So,
pathetic.
yes.
Now, is that a provincial or federal matter?
This one's federal. This is the federal funding from the federal
Okay.
funding agencies. Yes, I'm not sure
So
what's
Michel
happened on the provincial.
Trudeau.
Absolutely right. Now, there's a group called Support Our Science that held a rally on Parliament Hill. I'm guessing in December as well, and presented a petition to the House of Commons and prepared a submission for the federal government's budget consultations. The Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, François-Philippe Champagne, said he's aware of the call for more funding for graduate research and has hinted that there might be changes coming. Without giving it away. But he has said, I'm very much seized about that. This is going to be part of our discussions with the Minister of Finance. Students should stay tuned for the 2023 budget. So that's where I'm getting that. Nobody tells you to stay tuned if there isn't anything coming. It's clear that if we want to own the podium, we need to do more to support the research, the students, and the scientists, said Champagne. And this, frankly, really confuses me because given that we are one of the most educated nations on earth, why it is that we would have allowed that to go unattended when we know that the knowledge economy is definitely the future, and we have all this focus on STEM, but we're not funding research into basic science from our best and brightest that are here
Right.
already, and we haven't been doing it for 2 decades. That's weird. And we're all talking about the green shift to green technology and whatnot. And so we haven't been giving them a raise in 20 years. That seems a little counterproductive. That
Just a
seems
little
to
bit.
be a hole in the strategy that we somehow missed for 2 straight decades. 2 straight decades.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time. It's a long time to miss a big gap like that. Um, the group wants the government to increase both the value and the number of scholarships and fellowships that the three agencies give to graduate researchers. They often spend 40 to 60 hours a week in the lab doing the research. So when we look at it from this perspective, these students really deserve a living wage, says. Oh, I lost the name of the person who said that,
Well, I'm
unfortunately.
sure they were important.
The last name is Laframboise, but I did not write down their first name and who they were with, unfortunately, when I took my notes. Oh, darn. I'm so sorry about that, kids. Sarah Laframboise, there we go, a PhD student in biochemistry at the University of Ottawa.
Hmm.
Inflation has eroded the value of grants. If a 17,500 amount for a master's student researcher had risen with inflation since 2003, it would be worth 26,140 today, using the Bank of
Well,
Canada's inflation calculator. So that's nearly $10,000. That's
it's a
a
lot of money.
lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot,
I could use an extra 10K right about now. I don't know about you.
right?
I'd be able to help pay off some bills and maybe, put a little bit more into the RRSP and TFSA.
Yep, yep. Jessica Reed, who's a master's student in fish ecology at Carleton University, has said, I'm one of the fortunate ones. There's just this feeling of generalized anxiety. Sometimes you're trying to make ends meet or you're trying to decide between groceries and other things. And again, if you are supposed to be using your brain power to trying to develop solutions that are going to save the planet or, cure cancer or whatnot, you'd think you'd want these people to be fed and you think you'd want these people to not be anxious. A clear mind is usually good for research.
Well, a rumbling stomach is not one. Look, the brain needs food as much as the stomach does, right?
Right.
And if you're hungry, you're not thinking about the task at hand, which is one of the reasons why they created the lunch break. Right?
Right.
Did you know that the coffee break was invented to increase productivity?
Oh, do tell.
So the coffee break. Here's how it came about. I think it was wartime, and what had happened was a lot of women, for the first time ever, were out of the house and earning a living because their husbands or partners or whatever were off at war. And what had happened was they discovered that after lunch, productivity dropped off real fast. And before lunch, it started to really slow down. And so they went to one of and this wasn't even unionized. It was just, they had a representative from the labor force and it started with one company. And he said, we don't understand. She says, well, if we could get a break in the morning and have like a cup of tea and maybe a snack, and then, that would carry us through till lunch. And then in the afternoon, after, say, the 2 hours of work, we could have another break. That would really help us out as well. So they decided to give it a try, and they noticed productivity increased by something like 30 or 40%. And the coffee break became a staple of the workday. And it was
Oh,
all because capitalism, believe it or not.
wow.
Increase productivity, increase my bottom line. So I'm going to give you this break so that you can increase my productivity, which is why we need to go to a 4-day work week.
I
Right?
agree. I agree.
And don't make it a 4-day work week where I have to work 10 hours 10 hours a day for 4 days. That's not productive. It's not. In the average 8-hour workday or 7.5-hour workday, whichever the case may be, your productivity rate is good for 5 hours out of that time period. It's been proven time and time again. So let's shorten the workday to 7 hours because you'll get a lunch. You could actually have a proper lunch break instead of the 30 minutes. Like have a
Mm-hmm.
lunch hour and have 5 hours of productivity.
Yep. Yep. I agree with that. I agree with that. But through our comments, the kids are saying if they think it's okay for the smart people to live like this, then the politicians should have to do the same thing for their first year in office.
That's a great thought, Linda. Let's see if we can get that trending on the Twitter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's see.
Hashtag a year of poverty. Right.
Hey, hey, hey. Kit Jillian says growing up is overrated.
Agreed. Well, I like lazy
And
Sunday with Wade and Doe. Eating is highly overrated. Once every second or third day seems to be working for me.
yeah, and
Bro,
Kit South Stands TFC says invest in curling stones.
I read an article the other day because it makes me think of this, right? I read an article the other day and they said, in tough economic times, ways to save money is try intermittent fasting. So you have to spend less money on groceries. Yes, in my day, we called that an eating disorder,
Mm.
right? When they're
It's amazing how if
suggesting
you
you,
just call something different, all of a sudden it becomes a fashionable thing.
oh yeah, it's intermittent fasting. Yeah, that's called an eating disorder. Skip
I don't
lunch,
have
just
enough
eat
money to
breakfast
eat.
and dinner. I can't afford to eat. Intermittent fasting. No. Come on, man. We're better than that, aren't we? No, actually, we really aren't. As a society, we've really crumbled.
Mm. Indeed. Indeed, indeed, indeed. In other news,
Oh, I got a couple of quick
oh yes,
hits
please,
here.
yes, you said you had a couple things. That's true.
Couple of quick hits. First off, the weekend in Ottawa, art battle, sports. We got wrestling, and here's my favorite one down at the bottom: Mill Street Millers Run Club, Sunday at 11 a.m. A run club for all levels. Head to the Mill Street Brew Pub, 55 Wellington Street, for one of 3 distance runs: 3K, 6K, or 12K. Then enjoy a free Mill Street beer after the run. Free to sign up. See, didn't we talk about 2 drinks a week? So there's your 1 drink on Sunday morning after you go for a jog.
Ah.
Okay. Also in Ottawa this weekend, New Year Still Queer. Tonight at 7:30 p.m., a trans non-binary drag event and celebration at Beyond the Pale Brewery. There's a remodeling show and a wedding show, just money stuff. And then this little tidbit of news that I'm sure if you follow me on Twitter, you may have saw this before I kind of signed off for a couple of days. McDonald's on Rideau Street. You're familiar with McDonald's on Rideau Street, good
Absolutely, I
sir?
worked there once.
Yes, 99 Rideau. You work there, eh?
I
Yikes.
worked there. Yes.
Okay, so here's a little. There was an AMA from one of the former managers there 6 years ago or 7 years ago. The AMA was posted on Reddit, and I pulled this little tidbit. I'm going to post it now. In your time there as a manager, what was the most WTF thing to happen? We often lock the bathrooms at night. You would be surprised, in quotation marks, to learn that people use them to do shady stuff. One night, not dissuaded by the locked doors, this guy and girl went the dirty divot, the nook right in front of the washrooms. Via the security camera, we noticed some unusual behavior. Think, she had bent over to pick up a coin, but was taking way too long, and the gentleman behind her was trying to push her over with his pelvis. At that moment, some random tried to enter the locked bathroom. After no success at opening the door and completely ignoring the friendly couple, started to poop right on the floor, right next to them.
What?
At no point did either party acknowledge the other. All 3 finished at about the same time and went their separate ways. Yeah, that's the worst McDonald's in Canada. And it was
Whoa.
voted so several times, and Vice magazine actually did a report on it back in 2019. And talks about there's a brawl where there's a fight, and they used to have fights there all the time right in
All
front
the
of the
time.
cash.
Yep.
Multiple times, right?
Yep.
So for some reason, some older gentleman just pulls a baby raccoon out of his coat and holds it up. It was very bizarre. I'll see if I can find the clip. It's like, yeah, it's the most bizarre thing. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, I've got the video clip. Hang on, I'm going to pull it up here, and let's see. It's just in GIF form. So I'll hang on a second. You got to see this. For those who've never seen it, here it is. There's no sound.
Called?
Well, it's on a news Ottawa Citizen news site. So these guys are fighting, and the old fellow right there with the smoke in his mouth. Oh wait, I'll try it again. I'll start it again. So here's the fight. Yeah, fight. Yeah, it keeps going. This is right under the cash, right? This happens all the time there. And oh, they don't show it on that clip.
No.
Pulls out a raccoon. Oh, there it is. There's the raccoon. Right? See the baby raccoon in his right arm? So there's the old fella, pulls the raccoon out, and then just walks away. I thought did they show it in the clip? Oh, there it is, right at the very beginning.
There it is.
Yeah, right at the very beginning. He pulls the raccoon out of his coat. Like, why do you
What
have
was
a
he
baby?
gonna do?
And then
Swing it over his head?
I have no idea. Like, there it is,
Whoa!
right there, baby raccoon. Pulls it right out of his coat, puts it back in his coat, walks away with a cigarette dangling out of his mouth. I'm like, okay, that
This
was.
random moment brought to you by McDonald's chocolate shakes.
And so between 2014 and the end of 2018, police say over 4,000 incidents were reported at that McDonald's, averaging 2.25 calls per day at the time. The peak
Yep.
came in 2017 with over 900 calls made. In the last year, there's only been 200. So, it's gone down a bit, but only largely due to the fact that it's no longer hours.
Yes.
It's 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's it. So that
Yeah.
would certainly reduce
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Because there's
The
this
place is,
long, if you come through the back entrance, there's this long
yes.
hallway to get to where lots of stuff can happen.
Well, so back in the 80s, there was a balcony, like a mezzanine balcony level above the caches, and the caches were in a different space, and the restaurant was considerably bigger. It
Yes,
was.
and on Canada Day, it was the busiest McDonald's in the nation.
Oh yeah. Oh, so you remember back? Well, of course you do. Yeah, of course you
Yeah.
remember that. Remember the gaudy '80s colors it had back then too? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. And I remember to line up at the cache. It wasn't just an open space. They had like what they call a butt funnel, where it's like bars and railings to guide you. They had to take them out because
They had to
when the
take them out,
fights
yeah.
broke out, people were using them to slam other people's heads off of them. It was a terrible place.
Yeah.
It's a
It was a
legendary
good place
place.
to work, though, however.
Oh
They
yeah, yeah.
treated us really well. It was one of the
Well,
better student jobs I've ever had, actually.
well, you remember the Burger King that was on Dalhousie Street, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my buddy used to manage that, and that was a 24-hour, two-level store. And he
Yes.
told me multiple times fights would break out, and he would just call the police and lock the doors. Once the fight was broken up, they'd get them out, and he'd just close the restaurant. I don't care. I don't care anymore. No, not dealing with this crap. And it happened there all the time, too. Not as bad as the McDonald's,
Mhm.
because you had more people hanging out on Rideau Street bumming for change. And you remember the old Rideau Street bus mall back then. So
Yeah.
where people they had brilliant idea to put up this glassed-in shelter all along Rideau Street along the sidewalks. That'll never be a toilet for people, right? Because we have plenty of, no, you don't have nearly enough public restrooms or washrooms or toilets. So that place became a sewer. I remember standing there, and they used to have the doors closed in inclement, the windows would slide open and closed.
Right.
They'd have them closed in inclement weather. The stench got so bad they opened it 24 hours until they finally tore it down after a few. It was only, they tore it down in like 1990 or 91. So it was only 7 or 8 years it lasted.
Yeah.
And if you want to see the remnants of it, it's called the Crystal Palace in Perth, where literally just off the main drag in Perth, they bought it and built a structure out of it.
Really?
Yeah, so it was recycled.
Okay, well, at least it was recycled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, McDonald's, 99 Rideau Street. It's a legendary place. And there's always people hanging out in front of it, bumming for change, and it can be quite violent, like
Well,
on
I
the
remember
street and in the restaurant.
I remember back in the days when they had the bus shelters, right? Because it was all in the
Mm-hmm.
walkways were all enclosed in, right? And they started. There was always music there, and they had figured out that if they started playing classical music or jazz,
Yeah.
rather than whatever they were playing, it would
It
actually
would drive
make
people away.
kids go
Yeah.
away. Which is
That's what they do.
really sad because I like classical music and jazz, but I guess it's not really for
Not
the
for
emo
everybody.
crowd.
Well, they do that outside, the Sally Ann in the market. They started
Yeah.
doing that there as well because people were just, it got to be pretty rough. And of course, so they build all these condos right across from the Sally Ann. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
And
Very much so.
and a lot of people who moved in bought these new condos were complaining about, we don't like all these homeless people. It's like, you moved into the market, dude. They were there before you.
That's exactly what I said. I said, this is why I bought here. I grew up
Yeah.
in this neighborhood when I was a kid. These are my people.
Exactly.
It's like,
right?
like the really nice ladies at like 1 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep, and my mom took me to Mellows for a hot chocolate, who always thought I was really cute and pinched my cheeks, that had like boots that were really high that went way up to the knees and skirts that were really short, but they were really nice because these are my
Very
people.
friendly, very
Very
friendly
friendly.
ladies.
These are my people. These are the people I grew up with as a kid.
I miss
Your sex
Mellows.
worker is a person in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your
It's true.
neighborhood.
It's true.
So and it was the same thing. Yeah, one of the condos I bought is really close to one of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
I can see this. I can see the Sally Ann from my house. so,
Well, and
so
a buddy of mine who owns a
but I grew up there, right?
yeah,
And
so
it's like, so
you
I
knew.
walk down the street like this, and it's like, hello, hello, and
Yeah.
at 11 at night, late at night and whatnot, I'm walking down, and I have like friends after I moved in going, oh, I had to take the other street. I didn't want to walk in front of the Sally. It's like, trust me, the safest place that you can walk is in front of the Sally
Yes,
Ann.
it is.
If you
Yep.
live in the neighborhood, you know.
You know this. You know this. There's a buddy of mine who bought a condo there, and literally he's got a massive patio, and he's up on the midpoint building. He's on like the 6th or 8th floor, and I think that's like this top floor. So he's got a 2-level condo, and
Okay.
his patio over literally is looking straight down the street. So the Sally Ann is
Right.
spitting distance, and he was not an idiot. He moved in there knowing full well what he was moving into.
Oh
And
yeah.
there was the condo board was complaining about it. And he's like,
Right.
you people are ridiculous.
Right.
You moved into the Byward Market across from a Salvation Army. What did you expect? It's like people who move into buy a house in the suburbs underneath a flight path and get mad at the sound of the planes.
Right.
It's your due diligence.
Or the people that moved into the glebe close to Lansdowne Park during the Super X, and then would claim for 10 days a year there were concerts. It would
Not to
complain.
mention the fact that it's been going on there for 150 plus years. It's
At the time, right?
10 days out of your life.
Come on,
Take a vacation. Take a vacation. Come on.
You know that's going on. You choose to move within 2 blocks of a sports stadium. There's
Well, the
going
real
to be
estate
noise
was
and concerts.
this stadium was here before any of these houses.
Right?
I mean, the
Right?
Aberdeen Pavilion alone, it's been there since any of us were born.
It's like, I'm going to buy a house next to the airport. Gee, I can't believe I keep on hearing planes.
It's like the people who moved into the apartments above the Heart and Crown and complained about the noise from the pub down below.
You live above a pub.
What did you expect?
Really?
There were people, so Lieutenant's Pump, where we will be tomorrow
Yes.
for our pub, is it our third or fourth? Our fourth pubcast, I
Our
believe.
fourth
Our
pubcast,
fourth
yes.
pubcast. There's people who moved into that building. Now, the building's quite old, and the pub is in the basement, and, well, it's a split half anyway. So the owner rented almost every apartment above the pub. And he's put in noise isolation, and he's done everything he can to mitigate the noise that comes through. He spent millions of dollars, literally, on both the pub and the noise isolation. Now, there's the rent he pays for the pub, and then all the apartments that he rents. Now, most of the apartments he uses for staff change rooms, locker rooms, offices. I think he has 2 apartments that he has available to staff members. So if they're working late, and a lot of them work late, but if you're working really late and your shift you finish at 3 a.m. and you live in Barhaven, for example, he's like, just stay in the apartment. They take care of the laundry and everything, clean it up all the time. He doesn't have to do that, but that's to give you an idea of how good of a guy he is. But the reason he did it was because if he'd rent to anybody else, they complain about the noise, and he's like, you moved above a pub.
Right.
What were you expecting?
Right. Right. We have Kit Chris here that says Mellows was awesome. It really was. I was so sad when it closed. And Kit Lane said, I miss Super X. I do too. I looked forward to that every year. I remember those commercials from Becker's. Let's go to the X with Becker's. Let's go to the X. You buy your ride passes beforehand, and then Max Keeping would always do the CGOH news, and Carolyn Meehan right from the X, and just happy childhood memories, and lots of food on a stick.
Oh, yes, and Tiny Tim's Donuts.
Yes.
Don't forget Tiny Tim's Donuts.
Yes, and the Nielsen thing where they had the ice cream and like scored like a rectangle, and then they dip it in chocolate and roll it in nuts. And
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I think I'm gaining 10 pounds just thinking about
Sorry,
it.
my work computer here is becoming a pain in the butt. Just give me a second here.
um, in news that will surely make your hair curl, Mr. Grizzly.
Is that a shot? Were you taking a shot
You still got hair. You still got hair. It's
on my
just trying to get away
face?
from your face slowly. Moving
It's
downward.
moved. It's migrated.
um, it seems that old Danielle Smith out in Alberta
Oh.
decided that she was going to have some type of panel evaluate uh, how COVID-19 was taken care of and went down, I guess, in the province specifically because he can't do the national one. Well, the panel is going to has a budget of about $2 million, so she's put that much money to it. And when you think of person of the future
Mm-hmm.
with deep, deep, deep scientific and epidemiological knowledge and public health knowledge, the type of person, with a judicious career and good standing and great public reputation, that was really thinking about planning for the next pandemic, for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think of?
Not Daniel Smith. Perhaps a doctor, maybe.
You'd
Maybe
think, right?
maybe somebody who's a professional healthcare individual who's good at
Hmm.
mitigating, triaging, that sort of thing. You know,
Has been tapped to chair this wonderful committee who will review all of that.
no idea.
I love that word, reform.
Pat, uh, uh, um, Preston Manning.
Presto-Change-O Manning.
I thought he was dead. Preston Manning, rest in peace.
Preston, the guy who started the Reform Party, which was a protest movement
Mm-hmm.
against government largesse, is now, at the age of 80, going to be gleefully accepting $253,000 for his role as chairman. Now, you have to remember that this guy lost his role as leader of the Reform Party because an upstart, Stephen Harper, was upset that he expensed suits
Mm-hmm.
because they said they were not going to be that type of party. And now he's taking $253,000, even though he's got a vast knowledge of science and epidemiology and public health, and to chair this type of committee that will look into Alberta's COVID-19 response at a cost of $2 million, more than 10% of which is going to him. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
You think?
Just goes to show conservatives love to say, no, no, no. But they always take the dough, though, don't they?
Yes. Yes, they do.
$253,000 for Preston Manning to chair a panel to review the province's response to the public health emergency created by COVID-19 and generate lessons that could be learned for the future pandemics. Lessons for a government that doesn't want to do SFA. Doesn't even want you to get a shot or wear a mask. Gee, I wonder what the lessons are. Don't have a pandemic.
You think?
That's the lesson. Manning 80 will organize and chair that committee to complete what he states will be a review of, quote, the Alberta statutes which informed and authorized the government's response to COVID-19. There are valuable lessons to be learned from Canada's responses to COVID-19, which will better prepare us to handle future public emergencies, and that learning and applying those lessons is the best interest of all of us, Manning wrote in a column for Post Media, adding that he accepted the role, quote, with enthusiasm. Isn't he the one that suggested that there should be such a panel in the first place?
I believe so.
So this is a little bit like choose your own adventure. Just like belly up to a microphone, say that you need to do a study for about this, and then just wait a couple of months, and then you get tapped to be the chair of it with a $500,000, $250,000 check.
How convenient.
Loving one who loves you and then taking that vow. Nice work if you can get it. And if you get it, won't you show me how?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeesh. The panel will provide its final report and recommendations to the government by November 15th. If you're still the government. You might not have anybody to present that report to. Because if the NDP gets in, I'm not sure they're going to be quite interested in hearing the. I mean, I'm sure they'll politely say, "Oh, well, thank you for the report. Yes, yes, we'll take that under consideration," and then put it in filing cabinet number 13. That was a shredder
Yes,
sound effect, kids.
that's I believe the what was it? What's the lyric from the Brian Adams song? Let's put that in the circular file.
Round it goes. What page will come out? Nobody knows. Oh, man. So Manning says the panel will seek input from experts and the public around questions of what changes should be made, if any, to the laws of Alberta to better equip the province to cope with future public health emergencies. Have no laws to deal with future public health emergencies? I don't know.
Mm. Hmm.
Hey, Alberta, isn't it great? Not only do we allow you to have a bank account so that you can pay your own health, but next time we have a pandemic, you're on your own. You
Good
get to
luck
be
with that.
free. Isn't that
Free.
wonderful? I'm Daniel Smith. and, and I paid for this message with your tax dollars. This woman. Yep. So apparently he is going to
Apparently.
be doing that. Apparently. Yes. Well, this one apparently, because this one, he's apparently going to be doing work. But it's like, couldn't we just like title this report, predetermined conclusions and move on?
That would be too simple, wouldn't it?
Just give him the check for 253. Let him publish a report in November, like this, and let's not pay for the rest of the stuff, because that's about the best we were going to get out of this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because we're definitely not getting value for money here. And then in other news, Danielle related, it appears that we have a little situation in Alberta where, how would we put it? Um, Remember when then Justice Minister Casey Madhu had gotten a speeding ticket, I think it was, and then called the head of the police to
Mm.
inquire whether or not the speeding ticket he got may have had anything to do with racism?
I vaguely recall that, yes.
You probably should not be doing that if you're the justice minister, giving a call to the police and saying, "Do you know who I am? And do you know I got a ticket?" And hmm, and then just leaving it up there to wonder if maybe they would like to do something about that ticket. Maybe.
It's not a good
Hmm,
not a good look.
not a good look. Well, it seems that Miss Smith doesn't go goes to anywhere but Washington, decided that she was going to go to the Casey Madhu School of Do You Know Who I Am? Justice. And there have been reports all week long. And this follows, you have to understand, this is the premier who came in and started calling organizers of hockey tournaments, right, to ask if their vaccine participation policy on vaccines would allow people that were not vaccinated to participate.
Mm.
Kind of, sort of, maybe suggesting that future funding of the organization might
Yes.
be kind of, sort of in question
Yeah, that's not.
if those policies were.
She can't do that.
Can't do that, but she was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So apparently, there are questions about potential communications between her or her office or members of her office with the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service. So you know that thing about which everybody lost their minds when it was federal, when it involved Jody Wilson-Raybould, the Prime
Mm-hmm.
Minister, Gerald Butts, and a little organization called SNC-Lavalin? what they
Yeah.
said was going on there,
Hmm.
but wasn't, because the federal government had actually passed a law that allowed for deferred prosecution agreements. And the whole
Yes.
purpose of a deferred prosecution agreement was to allow the government to consider political factors.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, for example, how a lawsuit that would shut down SNC would affect the broader economy if all these pensions went up in smoke and all these high paying engineering jobs just left the country. And that maybe there should be other ways, maybe punishing the corporation that wouldn't involve people losing their pensions and their jobs.
Well, I would think,
So, but
perhaps.
I'm just saying, so they passed a law that allowed discussion about political considerations to certain legal decisions and a mechanism to establish another way of dealing with it, a deferred prosecution agreement, which means that you would necessarily have to have political conversations with the Attorney General, who also happens to be the Minister of Justice, because they wear both hats, which makes things messy, which we looked into. And Anne McClellan, a former Minister of Justice, I believe, and a former Minister of Health, decided that we shouldn't separate both roles,
Hmm. Hmm.
ultimately. Um, so the problem with that law is that the law didn't stipulate a very clear mechanism for which people could say, we've had this conversation about a political subject with our Attorney General, not with our Minister of Justice, in ways that were all clear and transparent, that wouldn't cause any problem. There wasn't a process set up for it. There weren't guidelines set up for that. And that's where they got in trouble. This does not have any such law. This is just someone who decided, hmm, well, I basically pulled a Trump, right? The people at the convoy who got charged and got fined, they were treated so unfairly, so unfairly. And when I become premier, Hmm? I'm going to call the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service and see what I can do about that. Because we treated so unfairly, so unfairly.
There's nothing she can do about it. Nothing.
Well, it appears that it's been about a week now that she has said that she has had communications with the Crown Prosecution Service. And then it's not really her, but maybe someone did. And then the story just keeps changing with every telling, because she realizes that she's more and more in hot water. And the most recent version of it is that a staffer in Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's office sent a series of emails to the Alberta Crown Prosecution Services challenging prosecutors' assessment and direction on cases stemming from the Coutts border blockades and protests. So she can't do anything about the federal ones, but she's doing the ones about Coutts. Now you have to remember, Coutts, right, was the site, well, not at the Coutts blockade
Hmm.
itself, was the protest that led to the raid of a place where a whole stash of weapons were found, and a conspiracy plot to kill at least one RCMP officer was held, and some vehicles tried to ram or run into RCMP cars. And yeah, apparently she wants Crown Prosecution Services to look into this case. Now, maybe not the case of the stashed weapons specifically, but to look at the charges that were there to see if, well, maybe there were some mistakes that were made and things could
Uh
be
huh.
changed so that.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yep. So basically, the article here in the CBC says soon after Smith was elected leader of the United Conservative Party and sworn in as premier, her office asked for a briefing on the cases. Subsequent emails critiqued the prosecutor's assessment of the charges and pushed back on the characterizations of the protest. Now, of course, the person who spilled the beans on this has not wanted to reveal their identity because they fear they could lose their jobs because, I mean,
Reasonable.
when yes, but reasonable, but in the freest province in Canada and the freest jurisdiction on earth, apparently you're not free to whistleblow.
No. 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 We can't. We can't. We
Mm,
can't have
mm,
that.
yeah. Always beware those who say they're coming with freedom.
They
The
seldom
freedom
ever
is
are.
usually to live as they tell you to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Basically, one source with knowledge of the correspondence has been quoted as saying, "This is so improper on so many levels, it's pure interference with Crown independence." The revelations come just days after Smith herself backtracked from comments about two instances, not one, not two, but and this is the third now, two instances when she said she had contacted Crown prosecutors, subsequently clarifying, quote, "At no time she had communicated directly with the prosecutors." So I didn't speak to the prosecutor itself, but I spoke to staff, or I didn't speak to the staff so much, but I had one of my staff speak to their staff. So it's not really me who did it, and it's not really all that bad. See, I wonder how we're gonna go from "I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong" to, "Well, maybe it was wrong, but I was justified." Oh, no. It wasn't wrong, and if it was wrong, it was still okay because it was me.
In my mind, it was okay. In my mind, it was okay. I declassified them in my mind.
The eight stages of Trump denial that
Yeah.
always ends up that it's like, well, if it was wrong, then it's not wrong when I do it, and I was justified. It needed to be done, and I was the one that was brave enough to do it. In a statement provided to the CBC Thursday evening, the Premier's office said Smith had not been in contact with Crown prosecutors and has no knowledge or if anyone of her staff is doing so. But she talked about, right? It's like on two occasions, there are times where I contacted the Crown prosecutor's offices to be able to fight for you, the 2% of people who put me over the top. 'Cause- and now she's going like this. Uh, I've not been in contact with Crown prosecutors, and I have no knowledge of any one of my staff doing so. But you remembered a few days ago that somebody had. You said it was you.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Yep. Last winter, more than a dozen people were charged following a blockade at the Canada-US border in protest of COVID-related restrictions and vaccine mandates. 4 sets of cases, ranging from weapons and mischief charges to conspiracy to commit murder offenses, are currently making their way through the courts in Lethbridge. CBC's News asked Kim Goddard, the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Justice Department, about the correspondence, and Alberta Crown Prosecution Service spokesperson Michelle Davio would not provide a yes or no answer when asked repeatedly if the Assistant Deputy Minister had viewed the emails. Not wanting to reveal a yes or a no is usually a bad sign. The same question was asked to prosecutor Steve Johnston, the Deputy Chief of Specialized Prosecutions and the Crown assigned to all courts-related cases. Davia wrote in an email that Goddard did, quote, not recall viewing emails, but said, quote, it is difficult to say with 100% confidence that neither Kim nor Steve have seen the emails that you've just described but not provided. Tell me they've seen the emails without telling me they've seen the emails. I can't recall if they had, but I can't say with 100% confidence that they haven't. I can't give you a yes or no to that. I can't give you a yes or no to that, but if you read my sign language,
Uh-huh.
that head is shaking up and down, up and down, up and down like naughty. Or wee wee if you're French. You know that.
I have to
CBC
take a
News
wicked
has
yes. I have to
yes,
take a wicked yes. A wicked yes? Oui, oui.
a wicked wee. Wee wee. So CBC News has obtained a copy of an internal email sent last Friday by Goddard to Alberta prosecutors after Smith made comments about being in contact with prosecutors, which her office later clarified as the Premier using imprecise language. Smith added she'd only spoken with the Attorney General and his deputy. Oh, because that makes it better.
Well, of course.
So I've only spoken to the Attorney General or the deputy, but I have no knowledge of any communication. How did that way go? That go to, and whether or not any one of my staff did. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a real hot mess express. Uh, so The ADM went on to say that she will only provide information to the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General. I will not brief other elected officials or any political staffers on details involving any individual cases, wrote Godard. If you are ever approached by any elected official or political staffer to discuss one of your cases, it is imperative that you report such communication to your chief prosecutor or myself immediately. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So, and then the article then goes on to say there has been tensions between the Ministry of Justice and the Premier's office when it comes to cases before the courts. Multiple sources familiar with the matter told CBC News. They explained Justice Minister Tyler Shandro and his staff were not involved in the email sent to ACPS lawyers, and the ministry has been trying to reinforce the independence of prosecutorial decisions for months. And you have to remember also that this is the duo, Tyler and Danielle, that went to a podium one day saying that their Alberta Sovereignty Act was definitely conformed to the Constitution and didn't allow Cabinet to make decisions on how it is that they would address these perceived slights to Alberta's sovereignty. And then somebody basically was the deputy minister of the Justice Department that basically came out and said, yeah, it does. And then they had to backtrack. So this is a justice minister who already in the mandate of this current premier has walked up to a podium and has shamelessly either lied or showed that he has absolutely no knowledge of the bills that he is tabling and advancing. And of course, that was the one where she pushed him in front of the oncoming truck when they asked her the question. She was, I don't have this, but I think Tyler can do this here. She's a real winner, that one.
A little bit.
Yeah. So last Friday, Smith said definitively that she had not been in contact with Crown prosecutors. Yes, just the deputy and the whatever, the attorney general and his deputy, but not the prosecutors, just the attorney general and his deputy. That followed two previous occasions where the premier stated she'd requested a review of the COVID-related cases and asked for prosecutors whether it was worth pursuing certain cases. I don't know. I don't know. This is a mess.
And ever so slightly.
And you will notice that all the people that were up in arms about the independence of the judiciary on SNC have all been stricken with a collective case of acute sudden mutism.
Funny how that happens, eh?
None of them have anything to say. Or group laryngitis. Maybe it's not mutism. Maybe it's just group laryngitis.
Is that a thing?
It is if you're a conservative. Maybe we should hire Preston Manning to do a study into that.
We'll pay him $200,000 a year.
Holy crap, man.
Preston Manning should be living off of CPP, OAS, and GIS like most elderly individuals have to do. So
they're going to make the Sky Palace his retirement pad. You know that, right? They're just going to give that to him at some point when he gets old enough.
Clearly.
Gee, what kind of province do you get to just like walk up and say, you know what, we should have a study on this, and then 4 months later get? I mean, I've said that already, but it just boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. Oh my word. Okay.
Like I said, I fail to understand humanity most of the time because every time I turn around, it's like, what is going on? I don't understand.
Right. Jeez. In other news, that'll be interesting.
Wait. I have something. You're going to like this.
Okay.
You're going to love this, actually. I found this last night. This is for Preston Manning and his new job and Danielle Smith. Ready?
Okay.
I thought you might appreciate it. I found the video.
I was not able to hear the audio on that one, fortunately, but I will hear it on the podcast. I'm sure it will pick up on that.
The audio didn't play?
The audio didn't play for us watching live here.
It should. It's on my sound pad.
Oh, well, that's okay. But you did find the animated one.
I found the animated one. And Well, Adam did. Why did? Oh, I'll
Yeah.
figure it out
The
later.
animated GFY logo from 20th century beeps. There you go. Um,
Do you have an echo? Do you hear an echo right now?
no, no.
Okay,
When
let
I
me try
speak,
something.
I do.
Okay, just
When
a
I
sec.
speak, I do.
Okay, so I figured it out. Yeah, okay. We'll try it again later.
All right. Okay, you have to turn off my echo though.
I did.
Okay, great. 4 police associations are calling for changes to public safety standards and the judicial system as violence against police officers is on the rise in Canada, according to them. 5 officers died in the line of duty in 2022, but 4 of them died in Ontario in just the last 4 months. You had Peter Polliver, of course, because he's never met a human tragedy that he will not exploit, rushing up to a camera and saying,
Conservatives are calling on the Trudeau government to reverse its catch and release bail policy. When there is a tragedy such as those deaths, people tend to look for simple answers, and there aren't any.
and yet he's the simple man who has all the simple answers, like fire the Bank of Canada, or invest in Bitcoin. Just take a little jog around inflation.
Didn't the Prime Minister address the Bitcoin thing the other day in a shot across the bow, and somebody said, "Oh, I can't believe this unhinged rant that he made." I'm like, "What unhinged rant?"
And then you listen to the rant, and it's like he's passionate, clearly, but he's far from unhinged. And I'm thinking it's like one man's unhinged is another man's let me rationally explain to you why it is like this, and let me show you a little emotion that I care.
It's like, if that's unhinged, wow, you're very delicate.
Very.
It's like your skin is so thin, man. How do you
Prosciutto's jealous.
Towels must act like sandpaper. Like, good God.
I mean, prosciutto is virtually opaque compared to your skin.
Yeah, like, what the hell, bro?
So 3 years ago, changes were brought in to Bill C-75, which is the bail reform that Pierre Polliver and all of his friends keep on calling the Liberals switch that to make it a catch and release bail policy. So 3 years ago, the Liberal governments brought changes to Bill C-75 to modernize the bail system. Critics say that the changes made bail more lenient, but the basic considerations that judges weigh when deciding someone is eligible for bail or not have not changed, according to Professor Gennaro Jones at the University of Windsor. Howard Sapers, a former correctional investigator of Canada, says the legislation brought in by the Liberals in 2019 takes into account root causes of crime. Let me try that again. Takes into account root causes of crime like mental health, addictions, and poverty. It focuses resources on keeping violent repeat offenders behind bars while awaiting their trials because most people seeking bail don't fit that category. So, while the bill is specifically focusing on keeping violent repeat offenders behind bars, you have Peter Poindexter running all over TV saying that violent repeat offenders are going in like through a revolving door because of the bail system. The complete exact opposite. Okay, of what the reforms did. They're not really a public safety risk, says Howard Sapers, and just locking them up for a couple of weeks or a month isn't going to address the issues that brought them into that conflict with the law. He says Canada's bail system is already tougher than most other jurisdictions. 70% of Canadians waiting to go to trial do not get bail.
70%.
70%. So when you see one of Peter Poppinjay's like little videos claiming that our bail system is a revolving door, allowing repeat offenders, and that Trudeau is populating the streets with these people, just like he's populating the street with unsafe supply, with drugs.
Yeah.
He's not even making an effort to pull that out of his backside. He's not even bending over to be able to reach. Because the tail on that one is so long, all he has to do is reach behind his back and just pull up. Okay, it's all BS. It's all BS. Those who do get bail aren't likely to commit another crime while release, according to Katrina Meyer, an assistant professor at the University of Winnipeg who focuses on punishment and corrections. There's ample evidence to show denying people doesn't make either communities or police safer. She says, we don't hear about all the people who do well on bail. We hear, of course, more often when things go wrong, and when things go wrong, we want to have immediate solutions. And we saw that when the stabbings happened on James Smith Cree Nation, because it was someone that had been out on bail, and recently the police officer in the Toronto area that went to help a car that had gone into a ditch, and then, so yes, no system is going to 100% prevent any person who's received bail, because there are people who receive bail for the first time who had no prior violent criminal record. Yes, please, let's have some coffee. That's your morning pour, kids.
And I would
Cup of goodness.
I would add whiskey, Bruce, if I had any. The bar is empty. I got to restock the bar. Sorry, I got literally. There's no alcohol in my house. None. Zero. Like nothing.
So, remind me about alcohol, because I need to bring something up when we have a chance. Just remind me, Kits, if if I haven't spoken about alcohol in about like 15 or 30 minutes, like this, just like put something in the chat. Say, Doug, speak about booze. Mr. Beaver, speak
Actually,
about
Elaine,
booze.
I am working my day job right now. I logged on at 7:45 actually.
Which is probably the actual reason, if anybody from Mr. Grizzly's job is listening, that he is not drinking, because he's on the job and he's a very responsible employee.
It's true.
I've got you. I got you back. There you go. I've seen it with my own eyes.
just coffee.
We have video proof.
Well, I will. Hang on. This is kind of cute, though. No wonder you're depressed. I have nothing to drink.
Yes. So, but when cases like at the James Smith Cree Nation, and with that police officer happened, then obviously you immediately get people going, our bail is not strong enough, blah, 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 we need to do stuff. So the simple fact is that the conditions to get bail have not been changed by the changes that were brought to C-75 3 years ago. Only 70% of Canadians waiting to go to trial, 70% of Canadians waiting to trial don't get bail. And the bail system is already designed to keep violent repeat offenders under lock and key. So just, to give a little idea. Now, another issue that police associations are facing is the one about ghost guns. 7 police agencies in Canada, from larger ones to smaller ones, from like cities like Saskatoon to cities like Sarnia, have said that they are reporting a jump in the crimes committed with 3D printed guns or ghost guns. Acting Staff Sergeant Ben Lawson of the Calgary Police says that the force has seized 17 3D printed guns in 2022, as opposed to just 1 the year previous. Now, the guns are illegal, but manufacturing instructions are easy to find, and the metal parts required to complete one can be purchased online or in a gun store without a firearms license. So, unfortunately, where there's a will, there's a way, and people are resourceful, and that that's not limited to only people who wish to be law-abiding.
No, so there was a fella in the U.S. who did the first 3D printed pistol, and then he released the plans online, and they tried to charge him, and he's like, "For what? I've not committed a crime." And literally all he built was the receiver. It didn't have, like, there was the clip was a separate thing that he couldn't 3D print at the time, right? So, did they make it a felony for you to create something of, like, it's a very strange legal area that I'm not an expertise in. So,
yeah. It's a little disturbing.
It is. But
well, I mean, it's more than a little disturbing, actually, because, I mean, on one hand, we're trying to pass all this gun control legislation, and, the current government is losing a lot of political points over it. Of course, self-inflicted wound.
Hmm.
Self-inflicted wound. They had what piece of legislation that was doing really well, and then they decided to add to it to make that order in council they passed a few years ago law. And in the process of doing that, they shot themselves in the foot and raised the ire of everybody that they had on side. And it has affected them in the polls, along with a couple of other missteps that have come out. Canadians are not impressed at the moment. And of course, as usual in true typical fashion, they did it just as they were opening a lead. Basically, a series of 2 or 3 unforced errors has them basically tripping over the flowers in the carpet again, and has given the Conservatives in the polling an opportunity to tie things up again and even take a lead. Now, of course, this is still the kicking the tires phase, as there's a long time to go, but
Hmm.
considering all the issues that Pepe von Peach Schnapps has on his plate, and his insistence on willing to still come out in support of people like Jordan Peterson, even though he's already had a big Tau scandal, but he's still going back to the well. And wanted to talk. I don't remember what the name of the group, the Manitoba Heritage Frontier or something, was it? That he went to give a talk to. Anyway, it was an organization that uh, basically is preaching that the residential schools thing is just all blown up. Um, I don't remember exactly what it is they said, but I mean they're not a good place. It's called the Frontier Center for Public Policy that he went to speak to about a week ago. And basically, for both of these groups, the center basically ran radio ads in 2018, which were soon pulled, saying that it was a myth that residential schools robbed Indigenous children of their childhood. Um, now and you have to remember that on this issue, Polliver has a history, right? Because in 2008, when Harper was going to deliver the alleged federal apology, after which he did absolutely nothing to help people. So,
Nothing
uh,
whatsoever.
yes, for saying that for residential schools, on the morning of that apology, he went over to CFRA and then like made this whole thing, you know, lack of virtue signaling, as I call it, to the conservative base. That there were many residential school survivors, basically said that many residential school survivors, of whom were of very advanced age, should learn the value of hard work, because
Hmm.
today's stunt puts into question that, right? Which was a stunt that put into question the apology. So we always see this with the Conservatives, they give with the right and take with the left. So Harper was given the apology on the right, but earlier in the morning with the left, he was sending his bulldog over to, tell everybody in the base, don't worry. I mean, we're saying this apology thing, but we don't really mean it. This, and hoping that nobody else would notice and pick it up. And then this past year, on the date of the Pope's apology, the papal apology, that was the day that Peter Poppenjay decided to coordinate with former Prime Minister Voldemort the fact that Voldemort was going to give his official blessing to Polliver in the CPC leadership race. And that was the
Mm.
news. That was the counter programming that day to the papal apology. So twice, when there's been apologies to Indigenous people, apologies that they've been waiting for a very, very long time, he's tried to steal the spotlight.
To no one's surprise.
And now he's going to this organization that basically says that this whole residential school thing was a myth, right? And then, of
Frontier
course,
Center.
the Frontier Center. And then, of course, he does the same thing that he did for the Jordan Peterson video, that he did during the Jordan Peterson video. Well, just because
Just because I agree that he shouldn't have his freedom of speech, sorry, freedom of expression. I keep on saying freedom of speech because, I'm trying to be American, but, freedom of expression taken away for being saying he's a licensed clinical psychologist while he basically advises people on Twitter to, leave this planet.
Yeah.
I think that's something psychologists should do. I don't know. But even though I don't agree with everything that he said, and even though I have his book on my nightstand, as I told you on the debate, um, you know, just because I support his right to speak doesn't mean that I agree with everything he said.
and then, of course, Mr. Anti-Elite in his video
Mm.
quotes Voltaire.
Yeah, that I thought that was hilarious.
I'm against the elites, like Voltaire said.
Hypocrisy. Thy name is Pierre Poliver.
But Voltaire
Now,
said,
does he?
but Voltaire said, right? I don't agree with everything you say, but I'll defend your right to speak it, right? Which is the one elite quote that these people like,
Yeah, they'll stand by that one every single
they'll
time.
stand by that one, right? So basically, going well, just because I went to speak to the Frontier Center doesn't mean I agree with every policy they advocate. You know, saying that. Let's cut some BS here, right? Yes, it's like, you know, just because I agree with Hitler on this one thing doesn't mean I agree with everything. You're agreeing with Hitler.
Yeah.
Like, and if Hitler has said one thing in his entire life that you agree with, I'm sure there is another person in the history of humanity who said the same thing that did not exterminate 6 million people who said it that you can quote in rather than Hitler. The fact that you knew that Hitler said it is probably the thing that is worrying, that you know him so well.
Well, did you see the woman in the UK the other day quoting Hitler and people just standing around? She goes, "Well, Adolf Hitler had it right when." I'm like, no.
Any sentence that starts with there is wrong. Any sentence that starts with
Period.
that is wrong. What Hitler had right was
No.
no.
It's Karl Popper, the tolerance, what was it?
Paradox of intolerance.
Thank you. I couldn't think
But
of
it's
the
like,
right
even
word.
if Hitler had it right, that on May 20th, 1942, the sun did rise,
Mm,
I would choose somebody else who said that on that day to agree
Yep.
with.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it could be the most innocuous thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So this whole thing of I am going to defend and come out and stand for horrible people who say and do horrible things. And I will say that because I'm standing for them in this instance doesn't mean I've supported everything they've ever said in their entire life, and think that that's a shield that you can hide behind
Mm.
to support people who do horrible things, like in general. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Nobody on the face of the planet agrees 100% with something somebody else has said their entire life. Don't quote sucky humans. Don't rush to the defense of people who hate other people. That way, you never have to talk about the caveat of not agreeing with something, not agreeing with something, everything someone has ever said, because that's true of everyone all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you need to say it, probably you're saying something in support of someone who doesn't deserve support. Just saying. If you have to make the case. Yeah, man. So, yeah. He's not having. So, despite all these errors that he's making himself, the party is gaining in polling. And, so it has to be the fact that liberals have been shooting themselves in the foot over the past 5 or 6 weeks that is causing basically the Canadians to do some kicking of the tires and exploring whether or not ask your doctor whether conservatism is right for you.
I'm pretty sure I know what the answer to that is. No.
It's not. It's not, unless you're that 1 in 5 dentist that actually recommends that people eat lots of sugar before coming. He probably loves. Yeah, don't take a vaccine. Eat the sugar. Come on, we got you.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
It's like, what? You want me to wear a mask when I'm going to be breathing down your mouth, fixing your teeth? What about my freedom? Just open up and say and let me dribble right into there. It's just, Oh man, that 1 in 5 dentists is a capitalist. Says Kit Linda, I love it. Let's see. Good morning, Kit Raffi. Kit Raffi Babuchian. I hope I said that right. That's a new name for us. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Kit BB. Good morning, Kit Elaine. Lovely for you to join us. Other people, I love how people just join us as the show keeps going on. And I love to be able to say hello to everyone. I hope I got everyone today so far. If I've
So,
missed you, I'm very sorry. Um,
so
do you have,
I gotta give you something here, which is kind of funny.
please?
So, the so because we use Restream, and in Restream it shows the chat window, but it doesn't show everything. It just shows the words. So for Rafi, it says good morning, semicolon, hand, pink, waving. But if I look
Okay.
over at the YouTube feed, it's good morning with a waving hand. Like it describes it in Restream. I'm like, hand, pink, waving. Look to the left. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. Makes
uh,
sense.
uh, you know what? It might be a childhood thing, but I'm always predisposed to liking people who are called Raffi.
I can get that. Yeah, yeah. I understand where you're
Hi,
coming
my
from.
name's Raffi. You must be a really cool person. I might be biased, kids.
A little bit, a little
A
bit.
little bit. Let's talk about, let's see.
He can't
Uh,
sing though. Apparently, he says he can't sing.
oh no, no, Raffi, you're breaking my heart. Let's talk about some economic stuff here.
Hmm.
Um,
I've got
uh,
something for that.
okay,
I do
please
have
do.
something for that. Yeah. So about the U.S. debt, folks, it's about time to talk about the U.S. debt ceiling. We
Yes.
can already sense your eyelids drooping, but stick with us here. This is important stuff. The U.S. officially reached its $31.4 trillion debt limit. Okay, that is a staggering number, which is the maximum amount of debt the country is allowed to take on. The U.S. Treasury can likely help the government prevent default until early June. The U.S. has a strange system in which Congress can limit how much debt the government can take on. In the past, the U.S. has inevitably reached that limit and Congress has raised it a cool 78 times since 1960. So they'll just
Wow.
raise it for the 79th time, right? Well, not necessarily. Congress hasn't been this polarized since the Civil War. And Republicans who control the House are saying they won't approve any debt ceiling increase unless the White House promises major spending cuts. Now, the debt ceiling spat was one reason it took 15 rounds of voting to elect Kevin McCarthy as the Republican Speaker of the House. Some members of his party wanted confirmation he'd play hardball in such negotiations. If an agreement is not reached and the U.S. defaults on its debt, the world economy will pay the price. U.S. assets are viewed as some of the safest investments in the world, serving as the bedrock for the global financial system. A default would cause investors in global markets to lose confidence in the U.S., drastically shaking their entire financial system. Now, the statement prior to that, as serving as a bedrock for the safest investments in the world, at one time that used to be gold, but Nixon ended the gold standard in, was it 70 or 71 or 72? I don't remember exactly. But when the gold standard ended, the U.S. currency became the currency of measurement, I guess. Would that be the right term? Measurement?
I do not
The
know the term in
standard
this case.
currency. It's the
Yeah.
standard currency. So it replaces the gold standard. So the US dollar is the standard currency that all is measured by.
Hmm.
So if they don't raise the debt ceiling because they want drastic cuts, and have you seen what the Republicans want to cut? Social
Medicare and
Security.
Social Security.
Yeah, so the things that keep people alive in their infirm and elderly years. No, we're going to get rid of that. You're on your own. Piss on you. You're on your own. Welcome to capitalism.
Yep.
So they're trying to go back to feudalism. I always refer to feudalism because you're working for the king or the lord of the land, and it's not far off from the truth. And you're basically indebted to them until you die. And if they don't raise the debt ceiling, it's going to crash the global economy, and we're all going to feel it. As former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau once said, it's not always nice to be sleeping next to an elephant because if the elephant rolls over, you could get severely hurt. And
Right.
that's just what it boils down to.
Yep. For the global economy, the director of the International Monetary Fund expects one-third of the global economy to go into recession this year due to simultaneous slowdown in the US, Europe, and China due to inflation, climbing energy costs, and rising interest rates. Um, some more information, I believe it was from the World Bank, recently stated that Canada and the US may actually avoid a recession altogether, or it would be very mild. But I wouldn't take too much accounting to that because the early statements from these organizations are often relatively wrong, just like they said that inflation would be transitory,
Mm.
and turns out it wasn't. So, uh, you know, but at the moment, that's what things are looking at. In the some economic news. Let's see what else do we have. I had some U.S. numbers here, but for some reason I seem to have misplaced them. But for Canada, um, let's see, Canada's inflation rate had slowed down to 6.3%, down from 6.8% in November. So that is good. We had recently announced that over 100,000 jobs were created in December, which was unexpected. So even though the core inflation rate is going down because we had hit an 8.1 peak last summer, we're down to 6.3. That is not showing up, of course, in food,
Mm.
which is still rising, and that's the same thing in the United States as well. The food inflation rate is about double the core inflation rate at the moment. And the United States had announced last week that it had seen a drop in the inflation rate, and it was expected as a result from that we would see something similar in Canada, and we did. It was a 0.5% drop in 1 month is significant, even though it doesn't
Oh,
sound like
yes.
a lot. Now, according to the Canadian Real Estate Association, their housing numbers for December show that the average price of a home in Canada has dropped by more than $190,000 since last February's peak. In February of 2022, the average house sold for $816,000 in Canada. Now it is $626,000. Uh, Now, for people thinking that that's a big discount, those are prices last seen in early 2021.
Wow.
So we're not going back to the future.
Clearly.
As we said there. Now, while the discount in housing prices is good, it's showing up mostly in Ontario and BC where things were overinflated. But prices in cities like Victoria, which also happens to be in BC and is bucking the trend in that province, Halifax, Calgary, and Quebec City are still up on an annual basis. So even though the average price nationally is going down depending on where you are living, if you happen to be living in a medium-sized city rather than one of the big ones, chances are that you have not seen any benefit or impact from that. Sales volumes for homes are now down 40% from the peak as well. Um, so there's that. In Ottawa, specifically, the Ottawa Film Office of Film and TV Productions, the Ottawa Film Office says that film and TV production in the region generated $57 million in 2022, with 16 Christmas-themed movies
Hmm.
basically being filmed in the area, among other productions. And there's more and more call. Now, they've been calling for this ever since I started acting back in Ottawa when I was 16. So we're talking close to 35 years now, but people are seeking a sound stage in the city because
Well,
there's more and more. And
it
they're
is
thinking
being
about
built.
LeBreton Flats, right?
Well, no, but there's also one being built in. Actually, I think it's completed. Former experimental farm building on Nepean South, just outside of Barhaven,
Okay, yes.
of Woodruff. It is
Okay.
a soundstage, and it's been under, I don't know if it's been completed or under construction or not. So we actually have a soundstage in the city. Did you know that? It's a small one, but it does exist. It's in the
Okay.
Schenkman Arts Center in Orleans.
Ah,
They
I
have a
did not know that.
soundstage there. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not. It's big. It's not a massive soundstage, but it is a soundstage. Not a lot of people know it exists because if you're not in the industry, why would you? But they're building a massive one at the old, like I said, experimental farm buildings, and LeBreton Flats is also looking at getting one as well. So the film industry is really beginning to take off here in the city, and I have my
Good.
finger on a bit of a pulse of that because a buddy of mine is a filmmaker. So, you know,
Yeah. Good, good, good. Now, if you're shopping for food, you may have noticed over the last few weeks that the price of eggs has gone up. I went out a couple of one day last week, and we ran out of eggs, and I went to actually two grocery stores, and none of them had a single carton left. I went to the first one and I thought, okay, well, maybe today it's just like they're replenishing the stock and the stock has just come in. They haven't put it on the shelves yet. I'll just go to the other one. So I walked 10 minutes to the other grocery store and there was nothing there yet. I go, what the
no,
hell's going
okay.
on with eggs? So in Canada, we have some price controls, so it hasn't been as bad. But in the US, for example, the average price of a carton of eggs has soared about 60% over the last little bit to rates not seen since 1973. Prices moved from $1.79 a carton to $4.25, but that's not equal around all places because if you're in Hawaii, it's almost $10 to buy a carton of eggs, and if you're in New York City, it's $11.49.
Ouch.
I know that's insane. Now they say that yes, exactly, Jillian. You got to exactly where I was going. You say bird flu in the U.S. is to blame, I think, and you are exactly right. Avian flu. Uh, CNN's Vanessa Yokevich basically has reported nearly 50 million birds last year because of this let me try that again. Nearly 50 million birds last year because of this highly contagious and deadly disease had to be culled, and that has lowered production. And with sustained demand, it's creating supply issues, pushing these prices up. And in September, avian flu cases spiked, which would likely translate to the impact in prices that we are seeing today. Now, I also heard when I went to my chiropractor that our lovely assistant there said that she was somewhere and she had heard a conversation, and there was a local farmer that was saying not only has the avian flu been an issue, and if there's anybody out there that can confirm this for me, I would appreciate it, but it seems that with the warmer weather, the chickens have had another molding period.
Oh, really?
Yes, they started to mold again, and apparently
Mold
chickens
or
do not
molt?
molt. Is it molt or mold?
MOLT? Molt? Mold is
I
when
always
you,
thought it was mold, molding.
no, that's when you shape something into a mold.
I
Molting is
thought
when they
that
shed their
too.
feathers.
Okay. Uh, then molting, then I guess is what I meant, not molding, because that sounds more right to me as well. Um, yes, molting, Moulting, though. And not MOL. So yes, apparently they've had another molting period, and apparently chickens don't lay eggs when they're molting, and apparently that process lasts about 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm. So
So
that's not good.
so that there's been
That's
an
not good.
extra hindrance. Now, I do not know if that's for a fact. That's just somebody telling me something they heard a farmer say. But if anybody has some insights into that, I would appreciate that if you know anything about that. So yeah, just a little thing. If you're noticing eggs and specifically have been being singled out for this type of thing, and basically, yeah, that's what I've mentioned before in the United States. That inflation is a really on food is nearly double the rate of overall inflation. U.S. groceries are up 11.8%, and that's similar in Canada. I think we're 10 point something percent. Um, in terms of the movie industry, because we were talking about it earlier as well, movie theater sales are dwindling. The total North American box office was around $7.4 billion US for 2022. The pre pandemic 2019 total was $11 billion. So more people, it appears, are watching at home still, or still don't feel comfortable enough to go out in a big theater and watch with a lot of people surrounded.
I think that Avatar 2: The Way of Water is going to help to a
Hmm.
degree with increasing ticket sales because they've already surpassed a billion and change in sales. And I've seen it once, and I honestly want to go see it again because it is such um, a visually stirring film. It's just you have to see it. You have to see it on a big screen, and I mean, I recommend seeing it on a big screen. I also recommend seeing it in like IMAX if you can, and 3D because the 3D that they use is not the 3D that Cameron shoots in is better than any other 3D you're ever going to see. Period. Right?
Hmm.
He used specific cameras for it, the way he does. Like, the guy's a brilliant filmmaker. I don't know what he's like as a person, but he's a brilliant filmmaker. Oh, did you also know something? He's still just a Canadian citizen. He
Oh,
doesn't have U.S. citizenship, and he says he'll never get it.
well, there you go.
He's a stubborn Canadian. He's like, no, I'm Canadian. That is it. That is all.
Good for
He
you,
is.
sir.
Yeah. I'm like, I did not know that. I read that recently, and I was kind of surprised because I thought he had dual. He's like, no, I'm just Canadian. That's it. Period. I mean, he's from Kapuskasing, so
Yeah.
if you're from Cap, you got to be tough because their winters are, well, they're pretty harsh.
Yeah. But I mean, this man can write his own ticket now, so
Well, he's been able to
he's
do
a
that
citizen of the world now.
since Terminator 2 really was,
Right. Right.
because everything he's done after that has just been outrageous, like Titanic, Avatar 2. Come on, biggest films in history.
Yep. Kit Saucy C, which gives us some additional information here. Mature chickens will molt once or twice a year, often with one soft molt where only a few feathers may be shed, and one hard molt where they will lose almost all of their feathers over a few weeks. Every chicken experiences a molt differently, even from year to year. Environmental factors such as heat, stress, malnutrition, or dehydration can cause molting out of season or for longer than normal. Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Kit Saucy. Appreciated that. More on the economy here. A survey of members of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says that their business confidence levels are as low as they are during recessions normally. Simon Gaudreau, the chief economist with the Canadian Federation for Independent Business, says it certainly shows that if it's not a strong economy right now, it will let me try that again. It certainly shows that it's not a strong economy right now. It will probably, if it's a recession, be a mild one. And if it's an economic growth on the other side, it will probably be very modest. So we're sort of around that 0% mark for the economy. At present, Canada is not in a recession. Unemployment in Canada and the United States remains low. The most recently released numbers show that the Canadian economy grew slightly. Jobs and employment statistics for Canada, which had come out as we mentioned, showed that there were over 100,000 jobs created and that inflation had gone down. As mentioned in the previous episodes, given demand for workers, there will probably be a lag before the unemployment rate starts to go up between 6.5 and 7%, as predicted by Bank of Montreal and RBC, as well as Deloitte Canada. And Deloitte Canada forecasts that consumer spending during the holidays would decrease by 17%. So that's other stuff going on. In the United States, holiday sales were down 10.6% from last year, according to MasterCard Spending Pulse. Claire Fan, Royal Bank economist, said, "There's been no growth in household real earnings, real average hourly income, and that's saying something, right?" And that's sort of the key driver that is underpinning our call for recession in the first quarter of 2023 here in Canada. Now, as we mentioned, Statistics Canada said 104,000 jobs were added to the economy last month, defying Bay Street expectations that had a modest increase of 5,000 positions expected. But employers are still reporting that they were desperately short of workers. Now, the thing that I'm noticing here is that the Bank of Canada seemed to be preaching a policy that they needed to impact the employment rate. They needed to actually raise unemployment to help with inflation, because the higher wages and demand created by the work sector, by the demand for workers, was contributing to inflation. But here we see that other than food, core inflation is still managing to go down up to 0.5% during a month while we're adding 104,000 jobs. So maybe the bank needs to rethink its thinking on that, because it doesn't seem that it's the jobs that are creating the inflation. The core inflation is still going down despite the jobs. These gains were comprised of mostly full-time positions across sectors, including construction, which added 35,000 jobs, transportation and warehousing, which added 29,000, information, culture, and recreation, which added 25,000, professional services, which added 23,000. Positions declined in educational services, wholesale and retail trade, and in the healthcare sector, which alone lost 17,000 positions. Manufacturing lost 8,000 jobs. Meanwhile, employment in the hospitality sector remains 10% below its pre-pandemic level. So even with all this additional economic activity and people having additional money in their pockets. Well, whatever additional money they have from wage growth, but of course it's being eaten up by inflation because it's not keeping up. The service industry is still not being able to reach its pre-pandemic levels because basically people have the options of better jobs
That's what
for
it boils down to.
non-shit wages and non-shit conditions. The economy created 381,000 jobs last year when most of the headlines were negative. The unemployment rate dropped to 5%, one of the lowest readings on record. Total hours worked increased 1.4% from a year earlier, a positive signal for fourth quarter gross domestic product, and the size of the labor pool increased by 0.4%, suggesting more people were keen to work. So things are firing on all cylinders here. Full employment is a sign of strength, but it also suggests inflationary pressures are building. Average hourly wages were 5.1% higher than in December 2021, the seventh consecutive month that wage gains exceeded 5%. Statistics Canada said that's an unusually strong rate of wage growth, which the Bank of Canada will see as evidence of inflation since wage demands tend to influence prices for goods and services. RBC Economics economist Carrie Freestone says the Bank of Canada is likely still close to the end of the current rate hiking cycle, although very strong labor market momentum and end of 2022 increases. My God, let me try that again. I'm having trouble today. The Bank of Canada is likely still close to the end of the current rate hiking cycle, although very strong labor market momentum to end 2022 increases the odds that the Bank of Canada will press ahead with another rate hike later this month. The expectation is that the Bank of Canada will probably raise rates another 0.25% at some point this month. But again, the bank is wondering whether or not it should be pulling off. So if employment is increasing and wages are increasing, but core inflation is going down, and there seems to be nothing that can be done for food inflation at the moment because we have climate change and war in Ukraine with the breadbasket of the world basically being affected. I'm not sure whether or not increased rate hikes are, whether or not we've squeezed about as much from that juice, that orange, as much juice from that orange as we can at the moment. But at the moment, one would probably still be wiser to expect interest rates to keep rising. As you mentioned on a show that I wasn't here for, Mr. Grizzly, as of 9:43 a.m. on January 3rd, Canada's 100 highest paid CEOs have already earned $58,800 in 2023, that which the average worker will make all year, according to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. While inflation may have been bad for workers, it was great for corporate profits, historically so. In fact, in dollar terms, after tax corporate profits hit a low of $287 billion in the second quarter of 2020, and then increased by a steady 59% to $456 billion by the fourth quarter of 2021. The growth has no end in sight as profits have since soared to $523 billion by the second quarter of 2022. So from $287 billion in the second quarter of 2020 to $523 billion 2 years later.
Wow.
That's nearly 100% increase. Nearly.
That's large.
Yep. Yes. And nobody got nearly 100% increase in salary. So the profits are not being shared. New data from 2021 shows that top CEOs broke every compensation record on the books that year. Total income, record-shattering. Disparity between worker pay and CEO pay, historic. Amount of CEO pay tied directly to inflation juicing corporate profits, unprecedented. The average top 100 CEO made $14.1 billion in 2021. That's 243 times the average worker's salary. This represents a 31.2% year-over-year increase. In 2009, the best paid CEOs made on average 155 times more than the average worker. In 1998, the ratio was 104 times. So between 104 times the average worker salary in 1998 to 243 times the average worker salary in 2021. Again, the profits are not being shared.
Great.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's what, if you work really hard and dedicate yourself to the company will do things to, reimburse you by rewarding you with a 20 cent per hour raise.
Yeah. By the end of 2021, year-over-year inflation was 4.8%. With inflation included, the average worker took a 2% pay cut, while the average pay for the richest CEOs was bumped by 26%, according to the report. The Canadian Policy Centre for All... Sorry. I screwed up their name. I'm so sorry that... Wow, I am having a rough day today. I believe it's the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives proposes the following taxation measures as a way to handle the situation. 1. Limit corporate deductibility of compensation over $1 million, which could yield $199 million in additional federal corporate income tax revenue. 2. Raise the capital gains inclusion rate to 100%, closing a loophole that is almost exclusively used by the rich. They currently pay half as much tax as they would otherwise pay if capital gains were taxed like working income. 3. Implement higher top marginal brackets. The top marginal personal income tax rate of Canada's rich is historically low. In the large provinces, the combined federal-provincial tax on working income at the highest brackets is just over 50%. In the 1950s and 60s, the top marginal tax rate sat in the 70% to 80% range. And 4, introduce a wealth tax, that which would generate taxes of tens of billions of dollars a year in new tax. Sorry, I'll try that again. Introduce a wealth tax, which would generate tens of billions a year in new tax revenue. So basically, what this is saying that since the 1950s and 60s, there's been a gradual tax shift away from the most wealthy to the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So that when the most wealthy were paying a tax rate of 70 to 80% before, now it's just 50.
Downloaded. Yeah, it's
Yes,
been downloaded.
it's all been downloaded. Right.
Well, the
When it
corporate
comes
tax
to
rate under Eisenhower was 90%.
yeah, yeah. NDP federal leader Jagmeet Singh has been all over this, as we would expect the
Mhm.
NDP to be, and he's doing a fairly good job actually at pushing the story on this one. When it comes to making CEOs pay what they owe, we absolutely believe that it's the right thing to do. After making such huge profits, there should be an excess profit tax. And that's what the UK has done. That's what Germany has done. Spain has done. The European Union, as well as an entire European Union, has. Sorry, that's wrong in my notes. That's what the UK has done. That's what Germany has done. Spain has done, and the European Union as well. So we can do it here in Canada. We're going to continue to push for it. And just to give you an idea, the highest paid CEOs in Canada are from a company named Nuve, who made, his name is Philip Fayer. He's made $140.8 million. He's by far and away the largest. Number 2 is Patrick Dowigy of GFL Environmental, who's made $43.4 million. And then names that you probably know more. Joseph C. Papa from Bausch Health Companies, Bausch and Lomb, right?
Mhm.
He's 28.7. Jean-Paul Chauvet of Lightspeed, 27 million. Joe Natali of Rogers Communication, 27.4 million. So most of them in the top 10 are around the 22 to 28, 22 to 29 million dollars, and then we have these two people on top that just blow them out of the way.
Well, if you look on the screen, I just posted what Hugh says. Tax them and their corporations at 1950 rates, which not only is that a brilliant idea, but for all those MAGAs, Make America Great Again. Oh, you mean like the 1950s? Yeah, we want it just like the 1950s when women were barefoot and pregnant and black people didn't have a chance at anything. No, I didn't quite mean that. When corporations paid 90% taxes? No, I didn't mean that either. Well, what do you mean? So, if you want to turn the clock back, let's turn it back and take the good things from back then and apply them to today. 1950s tax rates for corporations? Good thing. It's how America was built into the industrial powerhouse it was, because prior to World War I, wasn't that big of a deal. Post World War II, they were a global economic powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hugh can correct me on this because he is a history teacher, but I don't think I'm too far off on that one. And of course, the corporate tax rate was cut down to nothing, little by little, starting under Reaganomics.
Right.
With the trickle-down economics, as we know, is literally them pissing on us.
Right.
And we're supposed to catch it in the glass and drink it. No, thanks. No.
Yep.
No. You can take your own urine therapy. I ain't doing it.
Right. Yep. We have Kit BB here. Says, see if you can get Gil McGowan to come on the show. Union man in Alberta, trying to keep unions vibrant. Vibrate. Holy crap! I'm really off my game today.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
happens.
Kit BB. We've actually sent him an invitation a few times, and he has not responded, unfortunately. But we will keep trying because he had this intervention at I think at the one of the federal House standing committees that went a little viral on Twitter, in which he basically called out conservatives for basically mocking all the stuff that he was talking about, the important stuff he was talking about, and they were mocking him as he was making the presentation. He actually pointed out, it's like they're doing it right now. So he's yeah, we'll keep on trying to get him, but we did have one person from the unions respond to us to our invitation favorably, and we're hoping to have him on relatively soon. So just showing a little leg on that one. And Kit Saucy tells me to breathe. Yeah, I should probably try to breathe. I maybe would stop tripping over my tongue today. We have to go soon, so I won't deal with this issue because that has more time, requires more time than we have. You know what? I'm just going to say we have a show today. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
some news. Yes, because I forgot my Australian Open update.
Oh, and I have one
Because
thing I want to post as well.
we must give the kids their sports.
So before we do the sports, let me post this real
Okay.
quick because this will only take a few seconds.
Sure thing.
So there's a fella in Newfoundland. He calls him I forget what his name is. Whatever. I'll post it up in a second. You'll see it. And he's going on about digital IDs because Newfoundland is looking at trying digital IDs. And he's going, this is how they get you. This is how they get you. And the first response, so patriotic Newfie, digital ID, social credit system. So this will be optional until they make it impossible to do anything without one. The Newfoundland and Labrador government is hoping to launch a digital ID project in 2023 with the ultimate aim of being able to blah, 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 blah. And the first response is, you just tweeted from your digital ID. It has been tracking your every move for years. Already have MCP. Do your taxes fill out a sentence? The government already knows everything about you. Why is everyone so scared of everything? Mandates, needles, IDs. You know? And the best part is you tweeted out your digital ID that you handed over to a corporation.
Right.
A corporation, not the
Right.
government. The government,
Right.
which has got really strict rules on protecting your privacy. Corporations say they do, but do they really? According to a lot of the reports I've read, no, not so much.
Not so
really.
much. Nope.
Not so much.
Nope.
Oh, well, there was a leak.
Yep. Oh, well. Get Linda. Alcohol, Douglas. Alcohol. Yes, I was supposed to say something about alcohol. And I do not
was
remember
that?
what it is. Oh, no.
Well, how we're only supposed to have 2 drinks a week. Well, I'm gonna have.
No, we
one
talked about
before.
that on the other episode. Oh, darn. I'm so sorry. I should have written it down. Ah, darn. Okay, so some Australian Open news. Life happened at Canadians, came at Canadians rather quickly. Leilani Fernandez, who was the last last Canadian women.
Oh, did we lose Mr. Beaver? I think we lost Mr. Beaver. Yeah, he seems to be frozen. Let me just. Oh, yeah, his signal's dropped off, so I'll just pull him out for a few minutes here. I don't know what he was about to say, but it looks like he might be gone. He's got no signal anymore. Well, folks, we'll just end it on that because I have to rush off to the office to go take care of a problem. It's, duty calls and I have a job to do. Oh, hi, Leanne. I am Batman. I just thought I'd throw that in there for you. Good morning. And I know you're joining us late, but better late than never. Glad you're here. I got to run. Got to get some things done. Got to be a responsible adult today, despite the fact that adulting's never fun. Sometimes you just, yep, that's it. There we go, Reed. Mr. Beaver needs another vaccine to boost his 5G signal. Yes, the graphene 5G signal thing, it's got to be done. Okay. I got work texting me like crazy on my laptop and my phone. Things are going haywire. So I'm going to bid you adieu. I'll play the credits. We'll get on out of here. You can find us on Crier Media, which is where we now reside, which is, Dean Blundell Network is all merging into Crier. Crier.co. Crier Media is where we are. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, you name it, Google, wherever you get your fine podcasts, and of course right here on our YouTube channel. So please, go down there, right there, and click on the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate if you did that, because we would love to have more subscribers so we can continue to produce content for you. I gotta go, but here's the credits.
The True North Eager Beaver podcast is an Eager Beaver Mr. Grizzly collaboration. Research, story, and guest curation and copy written by the Eager Beaver. Recording, production, editing, and additional research by Mr. Grizzly. Music courtesy of Ben Sound Royalty Free Music. Once again, thank you to our founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss Fee Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing and CanadianTarot.com. And thank you to Pete Jarvis for our artwork. We love it. Kits, we'll talk to you real soon. Bye. Take care.
Oh, he's back real quick. You back? You there? Or are you frozen? Oh, he's frozen again. Okay. Well, we're going to head out. I will see you folks. You take care. If you can join us tonight, I will be on James's show, Casual Fridays, this evening at some point in time. Until we meet again, take care. Meet again, take care.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.